What's going on, everybody? It's your boy BJ, the DJ. You are now tuned in to the rewrap. This is episode 16. Before we get started, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. The rewrap's available on all streaming platforms. And if you haven't tapped in with them guys at Over the Top with Chad and Tony, please do so now. You can catch me on there as a recurring guest talking about movies and nostalgic wrestling. Episode 16. Let's get to it. What I have pulled up in front of me right now is another list of a publication or an organization trying to create a top 50 greatest whatever. And this one particular is Billboard. They have just released their list of the top 50 greatest rap groups of all time. What I will say about this list that differs from the ones I've critiqued in the past is at least this one has some very valid names on it. The placement of those names, however, is what's in question. And if you're I was drugged through the mud for talking about Kendrick Lamar and talking about how, as a hip hop fan, I don't put him over certain legends. Um, but the fans that came to bat for Kendrick are ones who told me constantly, time and time again, you're not up on new school rap. Well, I don't think a lot of the groups on this list will resonate with the new school rap fan base. So how they ended up so high on this list is beyond me. There's only actually, if I'm looking at this list, there's only one group on here that I think new school rap fans would actually relate to. But we'll talk about it, right? And we're not going to cover all 50. I've got the top 20 in front of me, and that's what we're going to talk about. And I think from the jump, the South is being completely disrespected on this list entirely, right? However, number one is debatable. What they have on here is number one is debatable. The top three I feel like could be switched in any type of order, but they are missing someone in that top five category. Someone I've put at the top of my list from the jump, but we'll talk about that. Let's get to it. Number 20, they've got UGK. UGK is in most people's top five, I think. If you're from the South, UGK is in that top three category without a doubt. Um, the thing about UGK that set them apart from most other groups is they had two artists that could completely spit, right? You could get bars from Pimp C and Bun B both on every song. What I think hurt UGK is I think after Riding Dirty, they would have the success with Big Pimpin' and the Jay Z collab. And Bun B tells the story on his solo album. Um, I think the issue with Jive and them shelving their project and waiting so long to drop a follow up to Riding Dirty is what hurt UGK. But they did have a solid follow up eventually come out, and it had the banger on there, Let Me See It. And it had, heavenly, it was heavily Southern influenced. But we just took so long to get that follow up to Riding Dirty. I think that's what hurt UGK in a sense. I love UGK. I don't think they deserve to be at number 20. I think they definitely need to be a little higher. I don't know if I would put them in the top 10 category as greatest groups of all time, but I definitely feel like 20 is way too low for them. Especially when you got at 19, they've got G Unit coming in. Now, I will say this about G Unit. That first solo project for me personally was huge, right? Because the first verse of the first song on that album, we heard Young Buck. And being from Nashville, Buck signing to G Unit, being associated with one of the biggest artists at the time, 50 Cent, was a big deal for if you are a local rapper coming out of Nashville to hear Buck on a nationwide scale was amazing, right? And not only that, Buck was hard. Buck could spit. For him to set that project off really gave a lot of people in Nashville hope that hey, you can make it out the bricks too, right? As a group, though, I don't feel like G Unit's contributions as a group warrant them being this high on the list, right? There was conflict. That one debut album was great, but the follow ups were just kind of pieced together songs that they had during sessions. Uh, Individually, the artists of G Unit, Banks, Buck, 50, you could even include Game in that, Yayo. I feel like their contributions as solo artists were important and influential and definitely valid in the game, but as a group, I don't feel like they deserve to be 19. I definitely would put G Unit over UGK at all. Maybe flip that completely. But yeah, definitely, I don't think G Unit deserves to be in here at 19. I think that needs to be a little bit lower, and I don't think they are one of the 50 greatest rap groups of all time. I feel like they would strike while the iron was hot. 50 was at his peak, so why not drop this G Unit this G Unit album as a group, and then get this Junior Records thing going. So either way, coming in at 18, probably the biggest fumble on this entire list. They've got 3 6 Mafia. I'll say it again until I'm blue in the face. 3 6 Mafia is the greatest rap group of all time. And who they have in this top three category, I'm not saying they don't deserve to be there, but 3 6 Mafia should be knocking on the heels of that number three spot without a doubt. The 11 album run they had as a group, as the core group, is unmatched. There's not another group on this list, if I'm looking at it correctly, that has 11 albums at all, right? So 3 6 Mafia being completely disrespected here, coming in at number 18. I have them way higher on my personal list, and I think they deserve to be way higher on this list. 17, Cypress Hill. I was never a huge fan of Cypress Hill. They didn't make music that I related to, but I know they had an impact in the West Coast and they have a following. They make stoner music, and it's that simple. And I was never really big into that, so I couldn't really relate. Insane in the Membrane is one of the probably the top 100 greatest songs of all time. But I just was never a big Cypress Hill fan. I personally wouldn't put them over 3 6 Mafia, and I definitely wouldn't put them over UGK. So coming in at number 17, Cypress Hill, I feel like that's entirely too high. And again, the South being disrespected at number 18 and 20 with 3 6 and UGK. 16, Beastie Boys. I'm not upset with Beastie Boys being on this list. I'm not even upset about the placement. I feel like Beastie Boys really were trendsetters, right? The early days of Def Jam, you didn't see a lot of white rappers, let alone white rap groups. And, they would debatable if they were still hip hop. They made a lot of rock influence type music, but a lot of the rap music in the early days was a lot of that music was heavily rock influence. So, definitely not upset. Beastie Boys, they sold millions of records, won tons of awards, helped solidify Def Jam as a powerhouse label. Not upset with them being in here at number 16. I feel like, me personally, I still put 3 6 Mafia over every group that's right here right now. But Beastie Boys definitely deserves to be on this top 50 list, and I'm not upset with them being in at number 16. Number 15, Naughty by Nature. Naughty by Nature was huge. Tretch was the guy there. They had hits, man. The mid '90s, Naughty by Nature were everywhere. They were about as big as LL Cool J was in the '90s. Their songs were hard. I mean, they had a different vibe to their music. It was different, and it wasn't necessarily the hardcore rap that you're used to hearing, the gangster rap on the West Coast or the mafioso type music on the East Coast. They found a groove and a niche, and they kind of fell into that and made hit records and sold tons of music. So not upset with them being on here. Number 15, I don't know if. I'm not upset about that. I think they're one of the top 15 greatest groups of all time, just based on catalog. They had a 3 album run that was successful, right? 14, the Fugees. Now, the Score is one of my favorite albums. Five Mics in the Source really put the group on the map. Uh, Number 14, I don't know. I think that might be a little high for the Fugees. They really only had that one successful album. I know they did 3 albums total. Lauryn Hill would go on to be one of the greatest female rappers of all time. Wyclef would have individual success. Praz had Ghetto Superstar, which was a banger, but other than that, it didn't really amount to much, right? So individually, they would have their own sort of success, but as the group, I think anything outside the Score is a stretch, right? But yeah, I mean, the Fugees, I get it. Top 50 groups of all time. I understand that, but I don't know if 14 is accurate. I think maybe slide that down a little bit past outside that 20 mark, I think, in my opinion. Mob Deep, no brainer. I think definitely Mob Deep deserves to be on this top 50 list, well within that top 15 range. Um, you know, Again, you had a group that to me it's like the Dog Pound, and Dog Pound's on the top 50 list. You had each rapper brought something different to the table. Havoc handled majority of the production, and Prodigy was the one who hit you with the bars, right? Not to say Havoc couldn't spit. I think what Mob Deep did for Queens really helped put it on the map, and it definitely one of the hardest groups to come out of there, right? So yeah, I think Mob Deep definitely deserves to be well within that top 15 range. 13 might be accurate. Um, of course, there's some people ahead of them that's questionable. But yeah, I think that top 15 range is probably comfortable for where Mob Deep should be, right? Number 12, Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Now, they're the oldest group on this list. I will say that. I think being the innovator of something or the pioneer of something is important, and it's important to recognize. But I don't think there's too many modern day rap fans that are going to resonate anything with Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. I don't think their music is going to hit them any type of way as being innovative, provocative, or anything. Um, they're not going to look at it in a positive light, right? I will say this: the message is probably one of the greatest rap songs of all time because it was the art of storytelling before storytelling became a thing. Um, but coming in at number 12 is that's a little too high, right? Especially when if you look at the groups underneath that, you've got Mob Deep, Fuji's, Naughty by Nature, Beastie Boys, Cypress Hill, 36 Mafia, G Unit, and UGK. All of those artists sold way more records than Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. Uh, all of those artists had more of an impact after the fact. Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five being one of the first successful rap groups is one thing, um, but they didn't sell much. They didn't sell much back then. It just wasn't what that's what it was. You've got double, triple platinum selling groups on this list, and you've got Grandmaster Flash and Furious Five ahead of all of them. I'm not buying it. So number 12, I feel like it's a little high. Maybe slide them down a little bit. Number 11, Migos. This is the one group on here I think that would relate to modern rap fans. Migos were innovative in a style that didn't exist, but then got copied by several new age rap fans and rap groups, right? Um, I like Migos. I was a huge fan of the Migos. I thought they made great music. I really enjoyed their music as a group. I feel like they paved the way for a lot of new rappers to come in and mumble their way through rap. I wouldn't consider the Migos mumble rappers, but they did have a very unique style and cadence in how they rapped. Very successful group, sold millions of records. Unfortunately, would disband because of a death, but at the same time, still left an impact in the game that will be unmatched. So shout out Migos. I definitely think they deserve to be in that top 15 category as well. Based on what I'm looking here on this list, maybe 11's good spot for them. I don't think I'd move them up into the top 10 range at all, but as far as new age rap groups go, I definitely think they're the trendsetters. So shout out Migos. Number 10, The Roots. I'm gonna actually talk about the next two, De La Soul and The Roots. Modern hip hop fans look at The Roots and De La Soul both in the same light. Very hip hop oriented groups. Sold records. Their catalogs didn't really come available until here recently, but I can't tell you much about their music because I'm not that familiar with it. Okay. Um, do I think they're two of the top 10 greatest rap groups of all time? I don't personally know. But that's just my opinion. There are people who really enjoy De La Soul's music, and there are people that really enjoy the Roots. I do love. Um, if I'm more familiar with the Roots than I am De La Soul, I'll put it that way. But yeah, they come in at 9 and 10 respectively, but I feel like that might be a little high. Just my opinion. Number 8, Salt and Pepper. This is the all female group. This is the only all female group on this list. Of course, Lauren Hill's a part of the Fugees. But yeah, Salt and Pepper was huge. I mean, they were very innovative for female rappers, and to have a very successful group. Salt and Pepper paved the way for a lot of um, female groups after the fact. I mean, and I wouldn't classify them as pop whatsoever. I mean, they were definitely rap oriented. Push It, huge song. They would have a lot of success in the '90s with None of Your Business, Shoop, several other songs that would chart for them in the '90s. Salt and Pepper in the top 10. I'm not mad at it. I definitely feel like they deserve it. They're a great group. Like I said, very innovative, very influential. Trendsetters definitely paved the way. Top 20 rap groups of all time. Yeah, definitely. In the top 10, I'm not mad at it whatsoever. Yeah, let's make that happen. Salt and Pepper in the top 10, coming in at number 8. I don't know if eight's the number, but within that top 10, I definitely think they have a spot. Number 7, Eric B. and Rakim. When we talk about lyricism and we talk about respect among peers, it gets no bigger than Rakim. As far as Eric B goes, I don't remember one verse from Eric B that was memorable or one bar that stood out to me, but I was a huge Rakim fan. I was really excited when Rakim and Dr. Dre hooked up, and that there was a chance for Rakim to get an Aftermath album, exclusively produced by Dr. Dre. We never got that. I know it's probably in the vault. It's probably done. I'd love to hear it. So if Dre, you can open that vault up, that would be greatly appreciated. But Eric B and Rakim coming in the top 10 at number 7. Eh, you know, I would slide them outside that top 10 range because, like I said, you're looking in the top 20, and you've got Migos, and you've got Mob Deep, and you've got 3 6 Mafia, and you've got UGK. I think some of them may deserve to be moved up, and I would move Eric B and Rakim down. That's just me. Number 6, Public Enemy. When you talk about the politically charged music, the revolutionary music, it got no bigger than Public Enemy. I definitely feel like top 10 greatest rap groups of all time, Public Enemy deserves a spot in that list as well. 6, I mean, that seems kind of high, but at the same time, I'm not mad at it considering one of the greatest groups of all time, Run DMC, is coming in at number 5. So here's where the top 5 gets a little weird for me. At number 4, they've got a Tribe Called Quest, and I put a Tribe Called Quest in the same group that I do like De La Soul and The Roots. I'm not as familiar with their music, not that I don't know who they are, and I'm not familiar with their catalog. I just don't listen to the music that often, right? They do have the typical singles that they released, and the most popular songs that pop up on my playlist from time to time. But as far as an in depth look at their catalog, I couldn't critique it whatsoever. But them coming Tribe Called Quest coming in at number 4, I'm not a fan of that, but I understand why people do put them they hold them in high regard. I would slide Run DMC ahead of them any day, just because Run DMC is one of the very first successful uh, rap groups in the world, right? They were the first to go platinum. They were the first Grammy nominated. They were the first to do a lot of things. To me, they helped put rap music on the map and to give it a different look. Uh, Number 3, NWA. This is another. The top 3 is going to be kind of controversial because if you're looking at overall impact, there was no bigger impact in the gangster rap world than NWA. And look at the legends that NWA would spawn. Right, you would get Dr. Dre, who would go on to produce some of the biggest records in the history of hip hop, who would break some of the biggest artists in hip hop. You got Easy E, who would start Ruthless Records and who would create Bone Thugs and Harmony, and who would go on to have the impact on the West Coast that he did. You've got MC Ren, who stood alone in his own as a lyricist, but kind of got overshadowed because of guys like Ice Cube, who then Ice Cube would become one of the top 10 greatest rappers of all time, one of the greatest writers for sure. And then you had DJ Yella as well, who handled production with along with Dr. Dre. As a solo artist, he didn't make as big of impact as everyone else, but he did produce some really big records. The impact the NWA had, not just on the revolutionary side of things, but this the impact of gangster rap. It really changed rap music. It made you sit back and really dive into a world that some were never familiar with until it was presented to them in black and white or in color, right? Yeah, NWA's impact, I feel like, should put them higher on this list, considering um, you've got Wu Tang at number 2. Wu Tang's another one. Look at the superstars that were spawned out of the Wu Tang clan. Look at the impact that Wu Tang clan had on like fashion, on music videos, on creativity, on production, movie scores, like all these things that Wu Tang made popular, all these things that Wu Tang had their imprint on. Um, I couldn't. I mean, I wore a Wu Tang shirt. They had Wu Wear They had Wu Wear clothing. They had um, the fashion statements that they would make that people would cling to, right? Like Wu Tang's impact is different than what NWA's impact was, like, but it's still significantly important. And number 1, they've got Outkast. If you are from the South, Outkast is held in very high regard. Um, Very innovative, right? When you talk about Southern rap and you talk about the sounds, you talk about the lifestyle, you talk about how it was perceived back then, it wasn't perceived as something that was very intelligent. Outkast changed that. To have them at number 1 is huge for Southern rap fans. But again, 3 6 Mafia is my favorite group of all time. I don't dis I don't not put Outkast up there. But this top 5 list for me would look a little bit different. I would have 3 6 Mafia at number one. I'd have Outkast at number three because I'd have Wu Tang at number two. I'd have NWA at number four, and I would have Run DMC at number five. That's just me personally. Um, but yeah, I mean, I feel like the representation on here is accurate, but the placement's a little off. This has been one of the most accurate lists as far as who's represented on here, but the placements have been really out of whack. Again, I'm not excluding anybody off this list whatsoever, but just looking at it, a lot of older groups being in this top 20, um, that doesn't resonate very well with modern age rap fans. Just my opinion. Um, that's what I got. I don't know what I'll talk about for the B side of this one just yet. A lot to dissect here. I may dive into that Outcast UGK debate a little bit for the B side. That may be a good one. But yeah, that's what I got. This has been episode 16, Billboard's top 50 greatest rap groups of all time. I'm BJ the DJ. We'll catch you on the B side.